Hey everyone, James here. Today we are going to be talking about two different Yiwu teas. One is very inexpensive and one is much pricier. We have blinded them both. We're going to be comparing them, and we're basically exploring here what does the money buy as far as it comes to Yiwu tea. Did the same sort of comparison for ripe with two white tea ripes. In this case, we are doing kind of two Yiwus that I feel kind of satisfy the basic kind of baseline Yiwu profile. They're not too weird. I feel like they're both kind of within that Yiwu genre pretty clearly. They're both somewhat boutique-ish. One is more generic. So the first one is the cheaper one I bought, which is marked in one of these tins as A. I don't know which one. Is the generic Yiwu 2002. Supposedly, it's a Taobao gamble I did. It was about 15 cents per gram. I have finished a good chunk of a cake, so, it's a perfectly fine Yiwu. I'm happy to drink this fairly regularly. The other one is one I picked up more recently, last year, actually, from Taobao, so 2024. Not from Taobao, from Amelia over at the Jade Leaf, and that is the 2005 BYH Yiwu. It won a blind tasting that me and a bunch of others were involved in, and I ranked it first as well. I liked it quite a bit, so I ended up picking it up. And so $1.20 a gram, 500 gram cake. So pretty pricey stuff. The full tong I bought of this, for instance, is cheaper than the one cake of the BYH Yiwu. So $1.20 a gram. So that's something like, you could put inflation in there, whatever. So 6 to 8 times difference between these two different teas. And they both are kind of like these very classic Yiwu profiles, wood, plum, that sort of thing. So very curious to see just how these two will differ. I think it will probably be pretty clear which one is better, even though, in terms of just like surface level flavor notes, they're going to be quite similar. I think what we'll see is kind of like a couple other characteristics that drive it apart. Anyways, I don't want to be too predictive of the tasting before I start to do it. So let's get into this tea. Okay, so here we go. And this BYH Yiwu is amongst the favorite teas that I actually own cakes of. I just really like the tea. I'm a big fan of the kind of run that they did from 2004 to 2005. And the SSX, the other one, which kind of comes under a Sheng wrapper. I don't actually know. It very well could be a fake. But the tea itself is fine. So yes, they're both teas that I know fairly well. They both are from an era. One is supposedly 2002. The other one is 2005. They're both from an era where, we're not getting all these fancy names of like different villages or like sub-gardens or whatever. So they're both just kind of generically named Yiwu, which was kind of more or less the norm at that time, certainly. I believe the BYH is a blend of a couple different kind of classic Yiwu areas. Take a smell. So the Sheng has been in my storage for 7 years. The BYH just a year, and it was stored in Taichung, where BYH is based. Before that, just getting wood, hay from that guy, and from this over on the right. A much more complex aroma. I think I know which tea is which already. Also woody, but a little darker, certainly deeper, perhaps a little more fruit forward. So not necessarily like stone fruits, but more like raisins, grapes, that kind of genre of things. Let's go left to right. I suspect this is the SSX, and on the right we have the BYH. Some maybe dark plums as well from that. Which I guess is a stone fruit. Maybe less of like the apricot peach stone fruit genre. Cheers. And Yiwu is an interesting region because unlike the strength of it is kind of subtle in a way. So you kind of have to approach it slightly differently than something that is a little on the brasher side of things. This is good. It's got nice sweetness. It's woody. There's not plum in the aroma, but there is some kind of like this plum-like taste in the tea itself. The body is medium. Honestly, not bad. It's a little dry. There's a little hay, little graininess, but definitely something I could drink regularly. I suspect this is the SSX. Let's get to this guy. It has that kind of Yiwu sweetness that lingers back of the mouth. That sort of thing is going to be a little bit harder to distinguish as we drink these teas side by side. So, I mean, it's important to note that side by side is certainly not the only way to do it. A comparison. Sometimes it's better to have a tea in sequence, so one and then the next, or one the next day. I just strongly recommend people approach it from different angles, especially when you have like many sessions to go. Try the tea side by side, try it on its own, and they'll both give you kind of like different visions of the tea and how it stands. Cheers. Thicker, way thicker, denser, oily. It's very obvious which tea is which. It has that kind of wood plum thing going on. Yeah, this BYH is just really nice. And then you can feel it just deeper. So on the surface level, the flavors are certainly related. They both have that kind of sweetness. The BYH is just better and deeper and denser, and not in a way that makes it like it needs to age more necessarily. I would say they're both kind of similar levels of drinkability as far as their age. Maybe the SSX a little bit lighter, but so I'll just start from here again. And it just like is more of throat coating rather than just kind of focused on the mouth. So the depth, just how far it goes down, is just quite a bit better. So keep this one short too. A little bit of tartness, so kind of tart plums. It's very rich, I would say, as far as this goes. And a session like this is tough because what will probably happen is I want to continue to drink this BYH throughout the day, but the SSX is probably just not going to taste very good in comparison. We will see when we come back to it on this next one. And so what will probably happen is after this tasting, I will drink the BYH and I will discard the SSX, which is a little bit of a waste, but it's fine. I have plenty of it. And it has served its purpose as a bit of a foil. So contextually, I would drink these teas very differently. I think the SSX, more of like, I got to do a somewhat shortish session. Sometimes on the weekends, maybe I'm brewing during my daughter's nap, and I don't have full focus, or I need to be doing a couple other things. I think good for something like that. A very... it represents the Yiwu profile decently well. It's just not nearly as good as the BYH. BYH, definitely a tea to savor. I realized that I was, waiting too long to drink some of these teas, and I should be drinking them more often. So trying to be a little bit quicker as far as pulling the trigger on some of like these teas that I really, really enjoy. Because in the end, yes, it is a pricey tea, but for a 5-gram session, something like this, you're not talking like crazy dollars. I mean, that's like under 2 digits for a session. The problem is you obviously have to pre-buy the session, so it's quite pricey in that sense. Cheers. Yeah, rich plum leather. It's just a much darker profile, and I think probably has to do with the storage on this, just being stored in Taiwan. As is the case with a lot of Taobao teas, it's a little bit of a mystery, this 2002 one, but it's clearly been somewhat dryish stored. I forget where it shipped from. I mean, I bought this years ago, so I don't totally remember. I don't even remember exactly what turned me on to this cake in particular. Nonetheless, it's good to have these kind of like very routine Yiwus around. They do pass my speed test clearly, and I don't think I'm going to have a problem finishing the tong of it that I do have. Yeah. The tartness continues, so I think I'm brewing it fairly strong. Plum, a little bit of dryness, but it converts quite quickly. the depth, it just goes further back and coating the throat. This is just really tasty tea. Okay, so over to here. It actually maintains okay as far as thickness. It's thinner, but, not ridiculously so. The sweetness, though, is way less emphasized on this particular brew. And I think that's just because the BYH is so rich. And it's kind of like you go from a really rich food to tasting something that's more, normally seasoned or whatever. And it just tastes kind of bland as a result. And that's kind of what I'm getting here for this 2002 Yiwu. Which, by the way, is perfectly fine on its own. I think it's, a reasonably fine brew. Yeah, it does taste a little thinner, although it does have enough thickness to be, somewhat satisfying. Yeah, it cannot compete. So we'll do one more of both of these guys. All right, we will brew this. The BYH is just kind of taking over my mouth. Really, really nice tea. Yeah. Push it just a little bit, but at this point I'm going to be transitioning into brewing for pleasure rather than for the episode. So I finished on the SSX last time. I'm going to do the reveal too, just get that out of the way. I actually really want to drink this BYH, so I will not give the leaves a soak immediately after. Hopefully I remember later in the day to take a look at the wet leaf and record that. Excuse me. So we'll start with this one. And yeah, SSX here, the 2002 Shenshishing. So that the Shenshishing, I'll provide a little more background. That is supposedly one of the it is in early operation, operated by the head of kind of that Yiwu township, Zhangyi. At the time, I think he's long since retired, but you'll see some cakes kind of around the 2000 to 2003, 2004 range. I have no idea if mine is fake. I assume it might be because of the price, but it has the Yiwu taste and stuff, which is why we're including here. B is the BYH. BYH, on the other hand, is a Taiwanese boutique. Apparently, it's one that's not super well known out there, unlike, for instance, Shiza Hao or Yongqing Hao or Chenyuan Hao. Those ones, I think, have a different level of awareness if you're around it. And BYH does apparently a lot of stuff behind the scenes more than pressing their own and selling them. Cheers. Decent thickness. It tastes really, really generic compared to this BYH. Yeah, it's amazing how generic this tastes. Like woody, some resin. I don't know. I mean, just kind of tastes like pu'er, like a mid-age pu'er, which is what it is. But there is more distinctness to it. It's just my palate is getting blown out by the BYH flavors. Yeah. Thicker, richer, just really, really tasty stuff. I am feeling the heating of the tea as well. This is the sort of tea that I'm very happy to have around and drink. So, yes, thank you all for tuning in. Let me know how you like this episode. And I will see y'all next time. And hopefully I remember to record with the wet leaf. Cheers.